All right, welcome back. We have Vicki here, and I'll give a brief introduction. Vicki serves as the Environmental Defense Fund General Counsel and manages the organization's national and regional clean air programs. For 2 decades, she has worked on air quality issues. She's been involved in numerous rulemakings under the Clean Air Act and associated cases, including several successful cases before the U.S. Supreme Court. She's testified before congressional and state legislative committees and authored several articles on air quality protection and environmental policy. She is the recipient of Air and Waste Management Association's 2011 Richard Beatty Mellon Environmental Stewardship Award and the 2011 WIG Chair for Creative Collaborations and Sustainability, and 2008 Health and Community Award received from her local department. Vicki serves as a member of the EPA's National Air Act Advisory Committee. And welcome, Vicki. We're so pleased that you could join us today. Well, Vicki? Vicki, I think you have yourself on mute.
Can you hear me?
Hear you.
Oh, terrific. Thank you so much for the opportunity to participate in this important and timely discussion. Environmental Defense Fund is a national environmental organization that approaches environmental protection through a science-based framework, and we are emphatically nonpartisan. We have offices from Bentonville to Beijing because we believe that to solve some of the big challenges that we see in protecting human health and the environment, we need to be engaged in an effective way, working with others who have a variety of perspectives, and that includes other parts of the world like China. It also includes companies like Walmart that can have a very impactful role in protecting human health and environment through their own corporate policies, and it can ripple across a supply chain that reaches from Bentonville and globally. So the discussion today about the importance of next generation compliance highlights a couple of important themes. One is that we are, very much in a world of changing and evolving technologies, and in this 21st century of big data and new technologies, how do we move forward in protecting human health and the environment in a way that doesn't lead to increasing polarization, but really leads to I think what we all share as a critical goal, and that is compliance with thoughtful, well-designed protections for human health and the environment. A couple of just topics that I wanted to highlight is that in the context of discussing next generation environmental compliance issues, there has been some concern raised by some of my colleagues in the environmental community that the threat of a change in EPA policy imperils the important work that the agency does and that perhaps states undertake to ensure effective enforcement and oversight. And so in some important quarters of the environmental community, the discussions about next generation environmental compliance have been heard through the perspective of some who are concerned that there would be some substantial material change in EPA's and states' commitments to important enforcement and oversight activities. And I think as we all kind of work together to avoid polarization and divisive debates in shaping and carrying out environmental policy, I think the more we can recognize that there is an important and broadly shared interest that all stakeholders have in compliance, and that is a unifying theme. That's really quite helpful. And indeed, I think the starting from those first principles, and that is that compliance is what we are all aiming for and working toward. And there may be a whole panoply of tools and good ideas and solutions to achieve compliance, but that is kind of a first-order principle that is broadly shared. I think would help enormously in bringing people together and helping to ensure that we avoid polarization and controversy as we all work through and discuss some of these new important ideas and solutions. The reality is that there are breakthrough technologies that are unfolding before our very eyes, and there are policies that are being forged before our very eyes that are changing the way that data is collected and reported to the public. And it comes at a time when our own country is deep in the throes of a debate over the role of technology and information and big data. It also comes at a time when there are increasing concerns about industrial activities and their impacts on particular communities. And this convergence of technology and awareness and concerns can either be one that leads to intense acrimony, or one that really, I think, leaders, federal and state officials can help guide us all through as we really, shape and guide and develop these solutions and policies, in real time. And just a couple of examples. Right now, there is a dispute unfolding over a Louisville gas and electric facility where the Sierra Club has put a camera on a tree that has been, through time-lapse photography, documenting alleged discharges from a Louisville gas and electric coal-fired power plant into the Ohio River. And some Sierra Club organizers put that camera on the tree about a year ago, and they have released the footage and the information as part of a legal action that they are pursuing against the facility. In my own home state of Colorado, the advent of FLIR cameras has heightened extensively public awareness and concern about what can be invisible but significant discharges invisible to the human eye, discharges from briskly expansive oil and gas activity. There are now companies, including one that's located about 5 miles from where I sit, that are pioneering all sorts of new monitoring technologies. One of the companies that we've spent some time with has an ozone monitor that is the size of a shoebox and costs about $5,000, has been EPA certified, and is being deployed globally across the world to record ozone concentrations, and they are developing a whole range of other similar monitoring technology. We've seen the advent of personal monitoring technologies where citizens can strap on personal monitors that record their own personal exposures to various air pollution. And in this world of the advent of new technologies and new information and distrust between citizens and government and the regulated community, there is an opportunity. And the opportunity is for all of us to really roll up our sleeves and to try to, I think, work with EPA in the most effective and thoughtful way we can to navigate and to really establish thoughtful procedures, thoughtful standardization and guidance that can be responsive to this important advent of new technology that is out there and is going to be deployed one way or the other, but that can be incorporated into the fabric of our nation's environmental protections in a way that gives everyone confidence that the information is good, it's reliable, and also is responsive to citizen concerns that new technologies be an integral part of doing what we all share, and that is providing for rigorous compliance and oversight to ensure that the important protections that have been put in place to address human health and the environment are in fact complied with, and their safeguards are realized for communities and families. So I think the next generation environmental compliance policies and debate that EPA has, I think, put into motion are critically important. They come at just the right time. And I think the challenge for all of us is to really navigate these cross currents in a way that leads to protective measures and measures that all stakeholders have a high degree of confidence in, and that strengthens the very fabric of our nation's environmental protections. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Vicki. One of the questions that I have is you talked a lot about the polarization between especially industry and some of the NGOs, and I think I think the air agencies that are on the phone, I think they see that daily, and so many times that ends up driving the discussion, and we have unique cases like the one you mentioned with the Sierra Club that forces this stuff, forces us to deal with it and talk through it, but a lot of times it's so reactive because it's, we're trying to deal with it as it comes and we're so busy. But what suggestions or advice do you have in how air agencies can improve working with the NGOs as we move forward through trying to figure out how this next generation compliance is going to look and how it's going to work?
I think it is happening, and it's going to happen in these new advanced technologies. Are going to be part of the public discourse, and I think the more we can look over the horizon and think about how do we design environmental compliance and protections in a way that recognizes these technological advances and provides really, I think, thoughtful framework for utilizing them and incorporating them into our public policies. That is a way to be responsive to the public and to reflect that there is a recognition that there are these important advances, but it also is important in doing it in a way that has the support and recognition of the technical experts in the states and the federal agencies who can really also give all of the stakeholders a high degree of confidence that information is being used in a way that is credible and reliable. And so, I wonder if there isn't a room for, some roundtable discussions, even with, local environmental organizations and a number of, leading state experts to really, talk about, the advent of these new technologies and how they are, most appropriately sort of incorporated into public policy, right? Because I think the dynamic that you described where there's Google Earth mapping and a map that's a camera that's affixed to a tree, and that becomes the basis of a citizen suit. That is the world we are in, and that's the world we're going to increasingly be in. And so, really, I think having, systematic discussions, through roundtables, through outreach, to think about that and to think about what that means as we design, thoughtful compliance policies is important. And I would pull into that discussion the NGO community.
We have a question here, but let me see if I can read it. It's rather long. Hold on. As a science-based organization, how does EDS see the issues with accuracy, truthfulness of newer, cheaper, and widely dispersed among non-scientific communities versus the Q&A known accuracy of established monitors? So, does that make any sense? I mean, we're versus a quality assured method of monitoring versus something like what you're talking about with the Sierra Club. How do you view that as a science-based organization?
So I think the place where it's really important for us to focus our resources and innovative thinking are at the seams, right? Because I think there's wide agreement that we need to have good quality assured methodologies so that we have some standards that govern the monitoring, design, deployment, its maintenance, and the information that results from that. It is also the case that there are just new technologies being developed all the time, and it's going to only increase in its intensity. And those technologies, while perhaps not being having sort of gone through the full review of a state agency or the full review of an expert federal agency to certify their rigor, they may nevertheless be legitimate in the public square, legitimate in the eyes of expert scientists, legitimate in raising awareness about a problem. And I think it's these seams where we've long thought about the world in a kind of a binary way, right, in this bifurcated way, that it is changing before our very eyes. And as we have these just leaps and bounds in information, and people who are experts have their own expertise and are going to deploy this information, it's those seams where we all really need to kind of work together to navigate, because they may not be technologies that have gone through the same extensive review that a monitor that's reviewed by EPA under Part 58 and is utilized for determining non-attainment relative to the National Ambient Air Quality Standards might have undergone review, but they may be technologies that are reliable, that are kind of have been tested, and that are being deployed in a way that may be kind of proportionate to their scientific sort of design, and they're going to shape the public policy debate. And so the more we can think about how we respond to that, and by anticipating it and looking over the horizon, I think it'll be really helpful. So one way to do it, one way to think about it is how in state administration and EPA administration do we think about opportunities to make data much more available electronically, just to provide a whole new degree and generation of transparency in terms of the emissions data that's available, and how do we do it in a way that also may be helpful to the regulated community by enabling them to use new platforms to report that are much more cost effective and much more sensible for them. And because we are going to be faced with this world where you wake up in the morning and the local news is going to be a story about information that concerned citizens have gathered and generated using technologies that may not be QA'd and QC'd through the same procedures and rigor that is expected for certain regulatory decisions, but that is technology that is legitimate in the public policy debate and in the public square.
And then on a follow-up with that, I think, just trying to wrap your mind around, and perhaps you have a thought, is it's changing so fast, and there's so much. When you can take webcam footage and submit it as evidence, and that, how do you propose regulations are crafted, and I'm tapping into your legal background here, are crafted in such a way that is flexible enough for these regulatory agencies, but still capturing that speed?
Well,
is it just constant dialogue?
Well, one way to do it would be to sort of convene a discussion, at the state level about, these new technologies, new information, and how as state policymakers, can you help put in place approaches and policies that kind of help everyone, right? One of the things that's happened recently in Colorado is a real partnership in developing new strengthened standards for volatile organic compounds and the new, first in the nation standards for methane from oil and gas that has as its centerpiece, instrument-based monitoring and reporting, at production sites. And the companies that were part of forging that policy, it includes in Canon, Anadarko, and Noble, what they saw is a landscape that was changing around them in terms of public confidence and public perception, and they saw the benefit of providing sort of increasing information to the public in response to kind of that crisis in confidence. And so, is there a place for a really, rigorous discussion about, does everyone in the final analysis have a strong stake in, providing public confidence? And how do we all work together to achieve that, right? Because if we can provide the public with information that gives them the confidence that thoughtful decisions are being made, the compliance is being achieved, and do it in a way that's workable and cost effective, boy, that's a great place to be for everyone.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that example that you used with the new methane is a helpful one in showing that it was really more of that local-driven, state-driven conversation. Obviously, you have that broader overarching and trying to look at it from a next-generation compliance and the EPA kind of drilling down on the focus, but having those localized conversations, I think, is helpful. It's just trying to get everybody, all the players at the table. And then, as you know, it's not all industry agrees with industry, not all NGOs are going to agree with NGOs. So really interested in seeing some of the leadership, or at least the NGO community, kind of come around some ideas and some scientific ways of looking at it, but at least examine. I mean, you're always going to have those, as new technologies come, people are going to be exploring with them and testing them, but to have groups as a larger whole say, this is how we're going to look at technology and how it's playing a role, and I think everybody is on the curve there with the education component, not just state regulators or industry or NGOs. We're all there at the same time. So learning how to communicate across continually, I think, is really important, and with more consensus at times, I think would be helpful. That's a statement, not a question. So I didn't mean to put you on the spot there, Vicki, and I told you there would be no questions and answers, so we really appreciate you fielding the various questions and providing your input, as you are an expert in this area, and we appreciate your time today.
I really appreciate the opportunity to join you in this timely discussion, and look forward to follow up.
Great. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Okay. Ramiro, I'm trusting that you are around and ready to go.
Yes, I am.
Excellent. Well, I will do a quick introduction of you. Ramiro Garcia is the Deputy Director of the Office of Compliance and Enforcement for the state of Texas, Texas Commission on Environmental Quality. His office is responsible for enforcing compliance with the state's environmental laws, responding to emergencies, natural disasters, dam safety, and monitoring air quality within Texas. Ramiro has been with the Texas CEQ since 1994. He has held team leader positions in the Petroleum and Storage Tank Division and the Houston Regional Office, and was the section manager at the Field Operations Air Support section of the Texas CEQ. In 2008, Ramiro became the area director for Texas CEQ, and that oversaw the regional offices in Austin, San Antonio, El Paso, Laredo, and Harlan, and before stepping into his current deputy director position. We really appreciate you joining us today, and we're looking forward to your presentation. And from there, I'll hand it over to you.
Okay, great. Thank you. Thanks for the nice welcome, and thank you all for your time. I'm very excited to be a part of this, and hope to share some good information with you all as far as what we're doing with the optical gas imaging camera. Next slide, please. So as you can see, what I'll be covering is 101 technology implementation in Texas, and specifically, I'm going to focus on the optical gas imaging camera that we utilize here in Texas. Next slide, please. So brief overview of what I'll be talking about, a little history, our history with the camera. When we purchase a camera, what's a typical camera package? Staff training, which is something that's very important as far as making this investment in the camera, training the staff. Utilization of flyovers, utilizing this camera to look at different types of facilities or regulated entities and give us a bird's eye view of what's going on. And then how does Texas use the camera during investigations? For us, this camera has revolutionized the way we do our business, the way we conduct investigations. It allows us to see volatile organic compounds, something that maybe that you cannot see, that you cannot see with the naked eye. It gives us that chance to see if a component's leaking, and it's really changed the way we do our business. But also, we've seen that industry has embraced it as well, and seen they've made the investment, and they've purchased cameras that's helped them on their end, the way they do business in identifying leaks and also utilizing it for safety. That's what feedback we've gotten. Next slide, please. So let's talk a little brief history. In 2005, we purchased 2 cameras from FLIR, and that's the maker of the camera that we utilize. And so we took a look at those, heard about the technology, seen the footage, so we decided to make an investment in 2 cameras. We had staff attend training provided by FLIR. As I mentioned earlier, this is really important. If you're going to invest in the camera, you should invest in the training. I can't stress that enough. It obviously will teach your folks how to use the camera. Let them know, number one, what are they looking at? What are they seeing? You know, that helps them interpret the images. And from there, once we purchased the camera, got the training, we did a lot of bench testing. Here, just around the office, we literally had big lighters that we would put up to the camera just for the wow factor for folks, but different things just around here, around the office. Then we took it out in the field and started really putting it through its paces. Next slide, please. I'm going to focus here a little bit about training. The training, when you purchase a camera from FLIR, we get the training with them, and it's a 5-day training course provided by FLIR, and you get certified, your operator gets certified, and it's good for 5 years. From there, once the staff member attends the training, we then have internal on-the-job training with senior staff on utilizing the camera. As you can imagine, when this first came out, there were a lot of questions about what we were seeing, what were those images, interpreting the images. You know, a lot of the feedback we got from folks like, oh no, that's just steam. So it took a little bit of time to show folks what the camera could do, what it was quote-unquote seeing. And so with that, you know, having properly trained staff is important. I mean, there are things that we really looked at closely. It's the little things that kill you. You know, are the images in focus? You know, we had some folks turning in images that were out of focus, and that completely defeats the purpose of what you're doing. I mean, there's that much detail, but the science behind it, the physics behind it, how the plume is acting, the heat transfer, all that goes into the training. It's an outstanding training that they put together, and it really helps our folks. But from there, the internal training is important because then we tailor it and customize it to the work that we do here, pairing up the staffer with a senior staff person that's had some time with the camera, and you know, sitting out in pairs and buddies. That way, we ensure that if we're capturing an image, it's right on, and it's something that we can defend. One thing that we're looking at here at the AAPCA is we're looking to expand the internal training. We're looking at more rigorous training on our end. It could be comprised of testing, really focusing in on what we do, how we utilize the camera in our business, and something that we're looking at doing just to expand the training because we think it's just so important to us to have that training, make sure our staff is fully trained up. All right, next slide, please. So when we're looking at the camera and the typical purchase of the camera, of course, in the package you get the camera, and then you have a choice of and there's different models of the camera now, so that's why you see 2 lenses, a 23 or 25 millimeter lens, or a 38 / or 50 millimeter lens. There's an additional lens. It's a 92 or 100 millimeter lens that can be purchased. You know, with budgets, understanding, I think a gentleman earlier from EPA said about $100,000. That's a good rule of thumb. Up and beyond that, but if with budgets in a crunch, we've found in the past that if we buy a package, the 38 millimeter to or 38 / or 50 millimeter lens, whichever one's appropriate for your camera package, gives us the best bang for the buck. Looking at it, you know, the 23 to 25 millimeters up close to the component you're looking at. 38 to 50 will give you can step back a little further, and then with the 92 or 100, that really lets you be far away from the object, and it's, you know, kind of like your zoom lens, gives you the ability to be far away and you look at the objects, be able to image the objects you're wanting to see. Next slide, please. So we see the camera. It's, you know, we get decide to make the investment and quickly hit the ground running. We did some field testing, bench testing, and we contracted with a company by the name of LSI. And what they do is they've mounted the camera on a helicopter, and they conduct aerial surveys. They've been doing it for pipelines for several years and different types of applications. And so we'd heard about this, and we thought maybe we'd contract with them to do some flyovers for us, or aerial surveys. So what we did is, and something I'd like to focus on is the aerial surveys or flyovers that FLIR did of the industrial areas, such as the Houston Ship Channel and the Beaumont area. Really, really fascinating. thing they did. Little things, things that we learned was making sure we had press releases, Homeland Security type stuff. We get the word out about this because people see a helicopter flying around, they get a little nervous. So one thing we learned throughout these aerial surveys is make sure you communicate with folks, let them know that you'll be flying in the area, and that way don't be alarmed if you see a helicopter. And so that was one of the interesting lessons learned. But the big stuff really was just amazing what we found. One of the cool things that we found were floating roof tank landings in these industrial areas. We found that with the aerial survey, that a lot of those landings were occurring, and we had a great deal of emissions that were being produced because of those landings. So we took that information and we started to follow up with on-the-ground, boots on the ground with our investigators, and we started a dialogue with industry about this issue. Next slide, please. So what we did is we got the images and we started working with the companies. Collaboration is something that really is very helpful in getting things accomplished. So we worked with the different companies, and we started to hammer out, okay, here's the issue, here's what's going on, what can we do to resolve this? And so what we found is in working with the companies, they agreed. They said, yeah, something we hadn't thought of, and they committed to, number one, minimizing the amount of floating roof tank landings. And in the end, when it was all said and done, we were able to reduce 7,184 tons of emissions in the industrial areas of Houston and Beaumont. Other things, working with our folks here in the Office of Air, the Chief Engineer's Office here at TCEQ, and with industry, is we were able to come up with guidance for owners of these tanks, and we were able to also come up with better calculations for calculating landing loss emissions from floating roofs. We even did a subsequent rulemaking that helped address these emissions, and just really a huge success as far as taking emissions out of the airshed, something we're really proud of. Next slide, please. Other uses as far as the aerial surveys, the flyovers, we contracted with LSI to also fly the oil and gas fields out there, the Barnett Shale, the Eagle Ford Shale, and even West Texas, the Permian Basin. This really gave us a good bird's eye view of how many tanks are out there, how many facilities are out there, what we're looking at to get our arms around to ensure that we are staying ahead of the curve as far as in the size of the industry, where we need to focus our staff as far as going out and conducting investigations. So from there, what we do is when the agreement is they fly the different areas. Now, if they see something that's alarming, they know to land the bird pretty quickly, land the helicopter pretty quickly, and get a hold of our region office, whichever appropriate region office is close by, and follow up if it looks like something's pretty bad. From there, if there's no issues, and I don't remember off the top of my head us having any major issues like that the last flyovers we did in 2013. But from there, what they do is they GPS the images for us, and we go through and start to do the field work, the on-the-ground work with our investigators. We take the images and we just divide them up into, we categorize them as A, B, and C, and just start working through them. And in the Eagle Ford Permian Basin, I think they did about 10,000 tanks in 2013 and saw about 5% of those tanks had some type of emission. And so our staff in the San Antonio, Midland, San Angelo, Laredo, and Corpus Christi offices have been working through now conducting the on the boots on the ground work. We do is provide them a questionnaire to get some answers from them as far as what kind of authorizations they have, what's their throughput, things like that. Questions about the equipment to help us start the conversation. And then from there, our staff will go out there and re-image the facility to see if the leak is still there or the emissions are still there, and continue that dialogue. Next one, please. So looking at how many cameras that we own, we now have 12 cameras at TCEQ. We have one that's located here centrally with our mobile monitoring team that they take out on various monitoring trips. And then the rest of the cameras are out in the regional offices, up in Dallas, Fort Worth, in Houston, Corpus, Laredo, San Antonio, Midland, Beaumont. I think that's it. But altogether, we have 12 cameras out there. Extremely useful tool. And one of the first big questions that we were asked was, well, just because you see emissions, is that an automatic violation? Or for Title V sites, is that automatically a deviation? And not necessarily. From there, that's what really, it's a screening tool for us. We use it to, that starts the conversation. If we see the emissions, then we have that, we pass out that questionnaire. We start asking, what are your authorizations? Do you need, what type of authorization do you need? What type do you have? And it starts, as I say, peeling the layers of the onion back. And sometimes, yeah, they're fully in compliance. What we saw are just normal routine emissions. Other cases, it could be pressure vacuum relief valves that are having issues, or seals on feed patches that are having issues, things like that. But with maintenance, usually those things are taken care of pretty readily. But you know, for us, it's a screening tool, and that just starts the conversation. We use the camera fence line is our practice, and you know, during those on-site investigations, we utilize it. It's really nice with that 100mm lens that we can be on the roadside and we can be doing, you know, wide-angle type reviews of facilities. It's worked out really well for us. Next slide, please. So, as I mentioned earlier, it's different uses that we have that allow us to see those VOCs. But one thing that that we notice is we're able to identify uncombusted VOCs from flares. Just use a typo there. It was pretty cool because as we're doing our field testing, what we've been hearing is that flares are pretty tough to image because of the heat signature coming off the flare. But through some work and a lot of field testing, we were able to start seeing maybe when you had VOCs that were uncombusted, and that really was helpful. And us, you know, working, having that dialogue with companies, and really helped us in improving our the way we look at flares and flare operations. So that's a really neat success story we've had with the camera. We've also used post-landfall after Hurricane Rita hit the Texas and Louisiana coast. It helped us identify different issues that were going on at companies. We used as far as the infrared part, we used it to help a company identify if the temperature within the tank was too high. They've been damaged during the storm. We used it even looking over gasoline stations to see if they had emissions coming from the underground storage tanks. Other areas, obviously, we use it oil and gas to look at the components. We look at landfills, processing towers, truck, barge, ship, and rail car loading and unloading. We're still finding out cool new things it can do for us. So it's always nice that we have good folks in the field out there that are always looking to experiment and push it to the limit of what it can do. Next slide, please. So investigative tools that we use on air type of investigations, there you have the GasFinder IR camera made by FLIR. We have a TVA, or a toxic vapor analyzer, that gives us a instantaneous reading right there on the spot. We also have the mini ray that also gives us an instantaneous reading on the spot. If we see emissions and we get in, or analyze what's in the plume, if we hit a trigger level, then we'll take a SUMA canister sample and ship it back here to our lab in Austin, so it can tell us what we were seeing during the investigation. So right there, pretty much, you know, when our investigators go out there on a air type investigation, either a reconnaissance investigation or complaint investigation, those are the tools they use right there that have been really helpful for us to do our job better. Next slide, please. This one, it's normally a video, but due to bandwidth, I wanted to just keep it pretty simple. But there again is a picture of the GasFinder IR camera made by FLIR that we utilize. That's I think an older model that we have. And what you have there is just an example of flyover of what we see. One thing that's really cool that we, over time and use and experience, it's always a good idea, is we, when we had the original, the first versions of the FLIR camera, or the optical gas imaging camera, we decided that if we were in a situation where we had a tripod, we should put a regular 35mm camera on one side and then the optical gas imaging camera on the other. And what we did is we snapped a picture with the regular camera to show what you're looking at with the naked eye, and then we would then take the footage with the optical gas imaging camera. So that showed you what you're looking at and gave you a good idea. What's cool is LSI, who does our flyovers, do the same thing. Right? What you'll see there, if the video was running, was you first see a color picture of that tank battery, and then it switches over to the optical gas imaging camera footage showing the VOCs leaking. So just an example of what it looks like. And the next slide, please. So here you have what I gave you the example of still frames. You have just the regular picture with the camera, what you and I see with our naked eye, and then next to it you see what the optical gas imaging camera sees. So if you look there, you can see what appears to be black smoke is the emissions seen in here at that particular facility. And so from there we share the images with the owner of the facility and start the conversation, start the dialogue of trying to figure out, is there something wrong here, or are those authorized, and what's needed to be done. One thing too that I failed to mention is with regard to the training of staff, like I said, we feel it's very important to make sure your staff are trained up, and which helps you also defend the imaging that's done or the survey that's done. But what we did is we also invested in one of our staff going to get level 3 certified infrared thermographer training, and so it was a lot of training that staff person got. But what that does is that now gives us an expert here at the agency that has this very specialized training and is able to teach as well, and serves as a good trainer. But one thing we do too is we have a support network within the agency that if you're an investigator and you take some images and you have questions, we share it here within the agency, and we have kind of a think tank that looks at the images and suggests what to do or what could be done better as well. But investing in that individual to have that level 3 training really helped. We actually had 2 individuals that had that training. One here retired a few years ago, but something we felt very strongly about, and it's with that training, it helps us decide how we want to tailor our training to help our folks do their job better. And I think that's my last slide. I think I have one last one. That's my main number. If you have any questions, want to talk or visit with us, that's where you can reach me. I'd be glad to visit with you. And with that, I'll open up to any questions.
Great, thanks, Ramiro. One of the questions I had was you talked about the flyovers and how that was really helpful in showing a broad picture of where you might need to focus or where you might need to concentrate. And if I heard you correctly, you use a third party to initiate those. Do you have any sense of the cost of those flyovers? And you may have mentioned it, I may have just missed it.
No, I didn't mention the cost, and I don't remember what the contract cost on that was. I can look and give you a ballpark.
Okay.
But it was talking about money well spent. It was good bang for the buck for us. But I can track that down.
Well, that was going to be my next question. Was if you thought that, obviously you've done it multiple times, and so you're seeing some benefits out of it. But I mean, as we talk through, as everyone knows, drinking budgets, just trying to get a sense of for states how helpful it would be, and it sounds like you already answered that. That is very helpful.
Absolutely, it's been really helpful for us. We did 2011 and then 2013 the last 2 we've done. So we're not doing them every year, but especially like in the Eagle Ford, as you see growth, it helps us get a count of tanks out there, see what's going on, and it's really helped us focus our resources on the ground.
Yeah, you talked about the importance of the communication piece, especially on the flyovers. Is there, you're informing public, and as you said, helicopters flying around. What's do you have any sense that what the state legislature and other officials within the state think about the program? Are they aware? Are they concerned? Do you have any sense of that?
Oh yeah, no, thanks for mentioning that. That's part of the communication that we do as far as press releases, but we also let our leadership know as far as our legislators. We also let them know as part of our outreach what we'll be doing, and they're very appreciative of that, and they like the proactive nature of that. That we work we like to collaborate. We work with companies, and to address these issues. But enforcement's always a tool in the toolbox that we have at our discretion. But we found that collaborating and having everybody belly up to the table, the communities, the residents, the companies, and look at solutions has worked really well for us. But yes, part of the outreach we do, on media press releases, we also reach out to our legislators and let them know what we're doing.
Great. Did you have any problems with the use of images during enforcement hearings?
No, and here's why. I mentioned earlier, it's a screening tool. So we don't hang an enforcement matter or enforcement action just off the image itself. If we're going to issue a notice of violation or there's going to be formal enforcement where there's a monetary penalty, it's usually based upon either lack of proper authorization or lack of authorization or other issues. But we won't hang a violation just on an image alone. It builds a case, but it's the screening tool that starts the conversation.
Thanks. How many enforcement actions were taken as a result of the use of the camera? I mean, that you were saying that you're using it as a screening tool, but would you say, I mean, as a tool, how has it helped, I guess, your enforcement numbers or catching enforcement violations?
That's a good question. I mean, it's been very helpful in the way we do our job and conduct our investigations and getting a good picture of what's going on and building the case. How many cases, I don't know off the top of my head. It's something I have to go research a little bit to figure out. But yeah, that I don't know. I can find out and get a number to the group. But it's like I say, it's really been helpful in the way we do, helping us in our investigations and painting that picture, what's going on at the site at the time we're out there.
Where did you get the funding to purchase the 12 cameras?
Over time, different sources. I mean, we initially, in 2005, if I remember correctly, I think we were able to free up some funding, and then over time, our legislature has helped us and given us funding for it. And I can't remember the other sources, but because it's such an important investment to us. I mean, it's been a while. We didn't build the fleet overnight, but every year we try to make it a priority as far as maybe trying to buy one or two. But I know our legislature has helped out. Can't remember if we had any grant funding, but we've had different sources of like air monies that have helped us build our fleet over the years.
So with that, and with the legislature helping provide funding for that, have you had companies come in and advocate for, or be an advocate in supportive of you getting money to do this type of thing? What's the company's general reaction with these technologies?
Yeah, initially there was a learning curve, with companies and with folks out there. But what we've seen over time is companies have embraced the technology and they've invested in their own cameras. More and more meetings we have with companies these days, they say, yeah, we have a camera ourselves, and we have it down here in the Eagle Ford, and we're moving another camera in from the state. They find it's a very valuable investment. We've had some, if I remember correctly, some legislation that was kind of an incentive, to use the camera for, and more so for safety type reasons, to give companies the incentive to use it. And that was back in like 2005 maybe later, 2007. But first, once you pass that learning curve, we've seen that companies have embraced it. As far as coming forward and helping us or advocating for us, I don't know. But we do see that they, we a lot of times now stand side by side with our cameras in hand and compare images when we're out there. So it's nice to see that companies have embraced it and are utilizing it. And a lot of them say the camera's paid itself off very quickly.
That's helpful. I think this question relates back to when we were talking through enforcement actions. And does the EPA get to keep the fine when you find an enforcement violation?
No, if it's a state action, the penalty, if there is a penalty associated, it goes into the general fund for Texas, for the state.
Oh, okay. That was going to be my follow-up question. If you used that money, a portion of that money to buy new equipment, but if it's going back to the general, then
that's correct. Yeah, we're a fee-driven agency, and so any penalties that we collect as part of an enforcement action does go into our general revenue here in Texas.
And this question asks, has the Texas CEQ published anything on municipal landfill? It's a two-part question. Can the camera show wellhead problems, piping? Sorry, I'm writing.
Yeah, no worries.
Piping penetration of the covers, etc., or leaches and leaches.
Specifics, I know in general we use it at landfills, but if that person wants to contact me directly, I'd be glad to put them together with our folks that have utilized it. And as far as any publishing or any results, I'm not aware of any out there that we've published. I just know for those different types of uses at landfills where we've utilized it. But if they want it a little more specific, I'd be glad to put them in contact with our folks and we can cover the specifics on that.
Great, thank you. You mentioned that this led to a lot of, well, the cameras have led to new rulemaking. Do you have an example of some new rules or rulemaking processes that you've put in place because of the information you found?
Yeah, it was related to the floating roof tank landings to help controls and help cut down the emissions. So it was related to the roof landings that I mentioned earlier.
And how I mean, we talked a little bit about this, the NGO and the constant coming of new technologies and the people constantly using new technologies. But how do you inform yourself on the new available technologies and make the decision that it's something that you want to pursue, or that it helps that you're using it as a screener? But do you want to speak to that?
Yes, absolutely. Sure. I mean, for us, we use it as a screening tool, but it's helped us also look at flares, the way flares operate, efficiency of the flares. Really, literally, we've been out at sites in the field where the operators are with us on a walkie-talkie, talking to the person operating the flare and making adjustments and seeing what it was doing to the ability to combust, the different compounds. But for us, as far as technology, I mean, that's the beauty of, we're a pretty big agency, about 2,800 folks, a lot of bright people, brighter than me definitely, within the agency, within our Office of Air, that either sometimes just get contacted by companies that have these new types of technologies, and they come in and they set up just like workshops, a dog and pony show, for lack of better terms, what their product can do. From their products that we see that are of interest, we then bring them in for maybe some more in-depth type conversations and see, because like most other state agencies, I mean, we have a budget too, so if we make an investment, it's going to be something that we've vetted as best as possible before we make that investment. But even like within our Office of Air, or even in the field operations side, we have like a monitoring equipment steering committee group that they're always looking at different types of equipment, be it for use in water quality, use in other types of applications. And so they're always out there looking at what type of technology is out there, what's emerging, and looking for feedback. So companies are great about contacting us as well, like I mentioned. So I mean, we're lucky to have such a great group over in the Office of Air, and even within field operations, that are always have their eye out for new technology. But before we make that investment, we definitely fully vet the equipment.
How do you ensure the pictures and videos are maintained for the Freedom of Information Act, or FOIA?
Yes, that's a really good question. We keep them on our server, and we have a secured server location. And so once the image is taken, we don't release it until the investigation, the follow-up investigation is completed, fully completed. And so we keep those as part of the file. We make a notation in the file. And so if we get an open records request or Freedom of Information Act request, as part of the investigation, we'll note that there's also an associated image or FLIR video, or excuse me, optical gas imaging video that we provide as well. And so we also always, very cognizant of making sure we have enough server space to do that. But we do keep them, and we have naming conventions for them so we can track them down quickly if we do get an open records request.
One of the things, trying to figure out with the next gen and how, the NGO spoke to it a little bit about using new technologies in building a case, which is not too different than you. Could you speak to how it might, if the EPA were to look at using monitoring or infrared technologies like what you have as more of just finding the violations, and perhaps an infrared is not a good example because you have to get the data to back up what you're seeing. But could there potentially, if you take out the censorship part and using it as just a filter like you all are, what would that, could you talk through possible implications of that, of taking out that extra step? Let's talk about, we can use the optical gas imaging camera as an example. Our main issue here, or our main point here is it doesn't quantify. It doesn't tell you parts per million what you're looking at in the plume. So it just tells you there's something there. Now, if we can get a reading by either taking a SumaCan, a sample with our Suma canister, or getting something with the toxic vapor analyzer or ray, get more of a reading, like, hey, we saw 8 ppm VOC at that moment, then try to equate that back to either a leak rate. That's where you start building the case. It would be hard, if, let's say, someone or a rule came up or something was proposed that said if you see an image with the optical gas imaging camera, you see emissions, that's automatically going to be a violation. I find that difficult to do or defend because, you don't know what the amount is. You just know there's something there. So for us, it's always, the burden of proof is upon us. If we're going to cite a violation. So that's where that other equipment we utilize, or utilize throughput data documentation to help build the case. But it's you definitely need to calculate what the emission rate is, or the concentration of emissions, to have that conversation, to cite a violation. How do you make the determination of, obviously limited staff, limited resources, how do you make that determination of where to use those cameras? Is it a rotating basis just when you're doing your checks, or how do you do that?
Yeah, sure. So yeah, right now, we in the region offices where we don't have the camera, we share. And so it's easy. It's nice. We've literally in the past, when we had one camera between San Antonio and Laredo, they would meet halfway at the Dairy Queen, and hand the camera off. And so we share equipment. Sometimes it's based on what are we seeing when we do our reconnaissance types of investigations. What are we seeing from flyovers, complaints that we get from citizens that we respond to, what are we hearing? And so from there, we're real good about communications, huge with the 16 region offices. So we talk amongst ourselves, and we say, hey, we're seeing some issues out here. We need to get a camera out to this region. And that's helped a great deal. So, we might have 4 cameras up in the DFW area, and let's say 3 cameras down in Eagle Ford. But, our staff knows that, hey, if your brother or sister out in Tyler need the camera, we got to find a way to get it to them immediately to use it. So it's just based upon different information that we receive. The beauty of field ops is that being in the community, they're right there, and so they're getting feedback, from their residents and from the citizens, and just keeping your eyes open, and it helps us. Been very, very helpful as far as utilizing and repositioning our resources.
Excellent. Question: have you seen more industry developing the technology just by the fact that they know, or seen a move in industry developing the technology just? Sorry, okay. I can't read. Have you seen a move in deploying the technology just by the fact that they know you have it and are using it? Doesn't having it alone improve compliance?
Yeah, yes. I mean, we saw, I think when the word was out that we had cameras, and yeah, the industry started utilizing the camera. But for them, you know, they got folks, bright individuals working in their companies that are out there looking at what technologies out there to help them do their job better. You know, a lot of companies, their corporate goal, they tell us, you know, all the time is, you know, they want to eliminate violations the best they can, deviations, things like that, and they really preach the use of the camera. And so I know that they're giving feedback to the manufacturers, as we did too. As we used the camera, we gave feedback to the manufacturers saying, hey, this would be cool if you could do this. And it's kind of nice to see that as the later models come out, they've incorporated what we think some of our feedback, and I'm sure incorporated some of the industry's feedback. So that's nice to see. But yeah, I think, you know, some folks say, hey, yeah, the TCEQ's got one, we should probably invest in a camera. And from there, you know, on their rate of return on investment, they've been really happy, you know, for as far as what they've gotten out of it. And so, and the company's always willing, you know, want to hear what's good, what can be better. So it's been great because, you know, we've seen over time improvements even in you know, in that technology. It's pretty cool.
Have you had any groups push to make the data available, the data that you get through the imaging devices, public or more public? No, you know, typically people know that the images exist. So what we do is, you know, we'll get open records requests for them, and we provide them that way. Or, you know, we'll share images best we can. But I mean, we're transparent, so definitely, I mean, if people want to see the images and the investigation associated to that image is done, we share them. But typically, it's been through, you know, open records requests. Right. Excellent. Any advice for states looking to utilize this technology, or perhaps one technology? I mean, when you're looking at a limited budget, that you think is better than another, or?
That's a tough question. You know, it is tough. We understand. We've gone through budget crunches, and you know, where things are tight. But I mean, bottom line is we all want to be good stewards of the money, you know, that we're entrusted to spend wisely. For us, I mean, I can't, since we've invested now, we built a fleet of 12 cameras over time. It's just been a great investment for us to utilize the camera. It's helped so much as far as seeing, you know, things that we couldn't see before, and helping us focus our resources during investigations and focus in on, do we have a problem area we need to look at with the company. So it's you know, I can't say enough about this specific optical gas imaging camera technology. As far as advice, you know, shop around. You know, you can buy. I think now they have refurbished cameras. Definitely, you want to have that dialogue with the different companies that make them, and shop around as best as possible. You know, but it's something. It's a worthwhile investment. But you know, for us, the Ray I showed you earlier, that's also a good workhorse for our agency. You know, used during emergency response investigations. I mean, that's also a nice piece of equipment that's been a good workhorse for us. But again, I can't tell you how happy we are with the investment with the camera. It's been a great tool for us.
Great. We had one last question come in. How do you document the observation from the camera? Are they in an inspection report?
Yes. Oh, good question. Right. So we're out there utilizing the camera. Yeah, we're documenting. You know, on our field notes, we write down what we saw, what we observed, and then from there, right, we'll include as part of the narrative in our investigation report what we saw, and then if we send the questionnaire to the company, the answers to that questionnaire will be incorporated into our investigation report.
Great. Well, thank you. I think this has been very helpful for me. I'm sure it's been helpful for people listening in on the phone, and I think we have a lot to learn, and I'm sure people might have individual questions. So we appreciate not only your presentation, but your willingness to answer those.
My pleasure. Please, y'all call us. You know, anything we can do to help, we're here. So just let us know.
Great. Thanks so much.
Okay. Thank you.